Hello and welcome back at the job site today. We've got some exciting stuff going on. We are hanging drywall. And when I say we, I mean Will and his drywall team are in here hanging. And we're going to cover a bit of what they're doing. But before that, I want to talk about some of the cool stuff you see all around me. The insulation is in. The lids are on. We are all prepped. You've got the vapor barriers on. That's the plastic that you're seeing. And let's talk about the insulation real quickly, because this is a very, very important part of the house. If your insulation isn't correct, or you don't use quality insulation or the right insulation for where you are, you can end up having a ton of heat loss. And let's look at what we've got. So come on over here. Okay, what you're looking at is wet blown fiberglass insulation. So this is blown in wet form. It takes only about 6 hours to dry out. It sticks to all 6 sides of the studs. So this stuff is really sticky in here. It's also pretty solid, a little bit more solid than your batt insulation, and the R value is fantastic. So it's sticking to the walls here, it's sticking here, it's sticking up at the top, sticking all along the back. And so what's not going to happen is you're not going to get droop. 10, 15 years ago, wet blown cellulose and blown in cellulose was the big ticket item. It was what you wanted. But what they found is that because the material itself is heavy, over time it would droop in the walls. It wasn't sticky, and it would actually droop down, and you'd end up with the tops of all of your wall areas not having insulation, and you'd get condensation issues up there. It would be no good. This stuff, on the other hand, better R value, sticks on all sides, it's always going to be in place, and it's much less expensive than, say, closed cell foaming the whole house. That would be the next level up in insulation, is if we were to have the whole thing foamed, but the expense level for that versus the R value that we were going to get out of it didn't make sense for this particular build. So that is the white insulation. Now, if we look at a different form of insulation, we're going to turn the camera a little bit, and it's the bedrooms behind us. Why do we have insulation in the middle of the house? This brown batting insulation, this is for sound specifically. These are 2 bedrooms, one on each side, kids' bedrooms, a bathroom in between, and we wanted to make sure that the kids are able to go to sleep at night if someone is, say, watching TV in the living room that we were just standing in. And so that is why all of these walls have this batt insulation. Is it full soundproofing? No. No, it's not. In order to be full soundproofed, you're talking about rubber grommeting on the studs. You're talking about creating an air gap. That is, the next step. And we do that in the sound studio, which we've covered in earlier videos. But for here, a little batting insulation is going to cut down on sound transfer by a lot. And you can see all of the interior walls that we care about sound moving in have this batt insulation in them. If it's missing here, it'll be put back in before the drywall goes up. It's just, goes in relatively loose. It's held in by a few spots, and then drywall goes up and it stays in place. Now, let's take a look at the lids and what we've got in so far. So, looking at the drywall that's been put on all of the lids, these are put in not only with those screws, but also glue is used, and they glue the studs and they put the drywall up into, so they're not only are they screwed on, but they're glued on, and it makes it so there's never a droop situation in this lid where you're not looking at the ceiling and seeing lines go across your ceiling, seeing kind of a droopy swoop after 5 years or sometimes only 5 months. If they don't use that glue to hold those boards solid in place and get lots of contact area, you're going to get droop. The same thing goes on these interior walls. If you look at the interior walls, specifically the bedroom walls, you see there's no plastic. There's no plastic on these walls because there's no need for a vapor barrier. This is an interior wall. So when they're hanging this drywall inside, they're gluing up the interior walls. Now, on the exterior walls, let's take a look at these. These wouldn't make sense to glue. Because we've got this vapor barrier in place, if we were to glue this, you're really just gluing to plastic. It's a waste of glue. It's a waste of time. It's a great big mess. So instead, they'll use a different screw in these places between interior and exterior, and they have more screws that hold these exterior walls on and hold them on solid. And we can actually take a look at the work that's being done on the other side of the house. These guys are hard at work. You've got a 5-man crew hanging today, and they're doing an excellent job. They're moving quickly. So taking a look at the process itself, you can see gluing up the studs, getting ready to place their next board in that area. This team works together in a very efficient manner. They're all supporting each other's work, so as they go, they're watching what each other are doing. And you can see they've moved through this room just in the time that we've been here in the studio. This is the laundry room. If we look over here, this is a room that is hung, lids on, walls hung. You can smell glue's still drying in here a little bit. This is going to be a dog wash station. So building in a dog wash station over here, and drywall is in, and then there will be a tub setting that's actually inserted into that space. All right, let's continue on and take a look at the rest of the house. There's one more part of insulation that I want to show you, and we'll see if we've got light for it. Get out of these guys' way. They're about to bring a sheet through. All right, so we looked at the interior insulation. On the exterior walls, we have wet-blown fiberglass insulation, sometimes called spider insulation. On the interior walls, we're using a batt insulation primarily for sound dampening. Sound is a big deal in a house like this. In a very, very hard home, steel beams, you can have sound transfer that really makes it a beautiful, beautiful space, sometimes tough to be in, especially we're going to have a piano in this space eventually, and trying to make sure that you can isolate that sound and dampen it, big deal. Over here, before these guys can start mudding all this, so they're hanging today, the next step in finishing drywall is mudding it. All these seams have to be mudded, and in order to get that mud to dry and cure correctly, this is a portable furnace. There's a temporary tank outside, and when they're ready to set this thing up and get it running, they'll move all this stuff out of here. None of it's actually ready to run right now. They'll turn this on, and the house will heat in the very same way as it will when the occupants are living in it, and that is very exciting. The lids are on. The insulation folks still need to come back and lay a heavy layer of the fiberglass insulation in the ceiling. So we're going to follow that process, and let's see if we've got light to show you downstairs, because this is a huge point. I think we do. We've got some natural light down here, so let's take a look. Up here along the rim, you can see the joists come in, and this is a spot where you can have significant heat loss, serious heat loss. When you're looking along this rim, any home that you walk into in the future, if you go in their basement, look along the rim. If the basement's unfinished, this is a telltale, did they do the insulation right? If you're looking at batting in there, if you're looking at oh, for goodness sake, there are a lot of homes out there that don't even have insulation in that space if they've not been taken care of properly. Instead, this is your foam insulation. So this is closed cell foam that is, actually, if we could get up there and stick a finger in it, we'd know for 100%. I am pretty sure that's closed cell foam. It might be open cell. The difference is thickness versus R value. They do the same thing. Open cell foam is going to have a much deeper, wider space. It expands more. It's open cell. Same R value as closed cell foam, which doesn't expand as much. It might only be, a couple inches thick, and the R values are similar. Generally, closed cell foam is slightly more expensive per foot, but if they're done to this different densities, if you've got the space to do a deep, dense open cell foam and you're not worried about fitting it into just a couple inches, great. It does a great job for R value. But foaming those spaces stops air leakage throughout the whole house. This is where the houses would breathe. And houses that don't have good insulation in that space, you're going to get cold floors, you're going to get heat loss, you're going to get air coming in or heat leaving. That transference of energy is really not a good situation. So I'm very glad that this entire, if we look around the whole basement, the entire rim is very, very well insulated. All the little spaces are filled. Even if it's tight, they're filled. We come over here against these exterior walls. Every exterior wall has significant insulation. That's going to make a big difference later on. You can see our insulation for this house. You've got excellent insulation in the basement. These are precast insulated concrete forms, wonderful insulation, ready to roll. The rim is totally insulated, and then you step up, and the walls also have a fantastic insulation system along all the exterior walls. We're going to be looking at an efficient house here. This is how we do it. One last thing before we finish up with today's update on the interior process, getting the drywall hung. In talking to Will, which is the owner of the drywall company doing this work, we asked him, what are you looking for in homes, in residential spaces, commercial spaces, when you're putting in fresh new drywall? What do you look for to make sure the job's done right? And the first thing he said, blocking, making sure that he has drywall studs to attach to in every single corner. So come over to this corner real quick and we'll take a look at what he's talking about. As a drywaller, it's really, really important that you have something to attach to at every wall corner. So the corners go in, and you can see the drywall can go on here and be screwed in. The drywall can go there and be screwed in. If there was a space, let's say in this house, and our framers did an excellent job, so we really don't have much of that in this house to speak of, but if there was a space where you've got a stud here and no stud there, or a stud, that's just a little bit off, and you've got a space at the edge, you can wind up with a gap where the drywall has screws in it, but at the very corner, they don't meet perfectly, and you can get a really ugly corner out of drywall when that happens. So they had to go through the house, make sure that all the blocking was in place so that they had attachment points at every corner, both interior, these corners, as well as these corners, that they've always got something to attach to there. We are standing in the master bedroom, and the team has just finished hanging this room. Now this team primarily does hanging. They're a hanging team. The next team's going to come in as the mudding and finishing team. And we're in the master bedroom. On the right side of me is the bathroom. Sadly, we got some heavy drywall in the way. We're not going to move. But then we've got the closet over here. And as soon as they get through this process and all these sheets are, installed, we'll be able to do a full tour. Something I want to just mention is taking a look at all of the windows. We've got attachment points on every area. There's blocking. And in these corners that we talked about earlier, every corner in this house, you've got attachment points right at the corner. Not out here, not away from this, leaving an open space there, because then you end up with a weird and ugly corner. And sometimes as they're walking through the home, walking through anything that they're doing, the first thing as the hanging crew has to do is look at the framing and go, okay, where do I need extra blocking? And they've done that here. The framing crew did an excellent job, and that's generally because this framing crew works with this hanging crew all the time. And so really, really loving the work that we're seeing. Before we finish for the day, we're going to take a trip outside because you haven't seen the back porch since it's been finished. So we're going to take a quick walk outside. Follow me. All right, we are outside, and realized in our last updates you hadn't seen the exterior of the back of the home, which is one of my favorite parts. Wanted to show the chimney and the siding that we chose going all the way up through that chimney, and you can see the cap on top of the chimney. This is a wood-burned fireplace. That's a real thing in there. We're going to be having, a log pile and bringing in logs and actually burning. So a little different cap choice. On this exterior, these are cedar wrapped as well. And these posts will be stained so that all of the wood in this house matches. The garage doors will match the posts, will match the front door, will match the exterior door. That door still needs to be stained as well. And then you can see over here, we do have a hookup for a hot tub unit. We got a big power out. So there will be a pad poured here eventually for a hot tub unit that will go this is long-term plans, of course, long-term plans. If we're looking at the back porch, you can see all of our fixtures are in. The lid's up for the porch as well, different from the vented soffit. You know, those are two different materials. But lots of hangers used on that so that there will be no drooping. That was a considerable concern. The fact that it's vinyl, saving a little bit of money on the outside, versus going wood, I was very concerned that the vinyl would show droop, so they took extra time to make sure there's lots and lots of attachment points. And you can see that lid went on very smoothly, that there is not a wave in it, which, you know, that's something to look at. Another point that we had is these steps. We realized, okay, the doors are up off of the poured slab, but what do we do here? And we thought, well, we can do it in wood. Well, we can do it, you know what? Let's just come back. And we actually built another form, of course, and poured steps for these doors so that it's an easy entrance and exit. We are covered in woods, and there's lots of leaves in the fall, so making sure that, you know, we're not right on the slab as you're walking in, having that little bit of raise up really helps just keep the dirt outside is the hope. That is the hope. We'll see how it works. Windows are all in, and this is the back porch. That is the master bedroom over there, living room over here. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you in the next update as we continue finishing our new house.